I've seen some Gen Rush by Tunnelite videos that had me thinking a little bit. I've seen some videos about console tips, controller players just stop being broke and buy a $15,000 gaming PC tips. But what if someone new comes to Dead by Daylight? Let's call him Demi. No reason, just let's call him Demi. If Demi just got his hands on a new PlayStation or Xbox and is like, wow, even though I'm already in the game, this is 100% my first time playing it, and somehow I have every killer off rip, but which ones should I play? I don't even know which ones are the best or the easiest to play. Let me look on YouTube. He continues to put in the search bar what DBD killers are best for a console, just for nothing to pop up except for controller tips. Kinda sad story, right? Well, let's just say I want to be that video that pops up. But real quick, let me say what is good in my gang, what is good fam? Time to answer the question, what are the best killers for console in Dead by Daylight? Let me talk about something super really quick. I will put the tier list on screen right now while I speak. This is my personal opinion. I have 2.5 thousand hours on this game, so I have nowhere near the experience that other YouTubers do. So if someone with like 10,000 plus hours say they don't agree with a placement or two, remember this list is subjective at the end of the day, so take it with salt. And I'm not talking about fully mastering the killers. I'm just talking about learning and getting decent with them against new survivors, experienced survivors, and almost pro survivors. And the list is sorted from S tier being easiest, while C is the hardest and least accessible, and it's all in order. And remember, this is my opinion again. S is the first tier. These killers are very simple, easier to use at high levels of play, and don't take any advanced mechanical skill that's too much harder on a console than on a PC. First killer in S is Wraith. Wraith is the simplest killer in the game. He's so simple to use, understand, and explain. That's why he is first. Cloak for stealth and very fast movement to get from point A to point B. Uncloak to get a speed boost and for a surprise attack. That's almost literally it. Super simple, and a bird could probably play this killer. And he can no longer get light burn, so that is a big plus. Next is Legion. You press left trigger and you break into a feral sprint. You hit one survivor, run to the next, rinse and repeat, they're all injured. You can also vault pallets and vault windows super fast while sprinting. It's really simple. Legion is really good at keeping the whole team injured but has nothing else, which means he's really easy to learn. So he's a really good pick for new console players. Next is Freddy. Nah, but for real, he has snares he can put down and chase for some anti-loot, which is super easy to get the hang of. You just have to play like a game. The dream world is some slight free stealth, as survivors can't spot you until you get closer and your heartbeat is gone. It's just your lullaby. And you have an instant teleport to get to any generator instantly, so his power is really simple and easy on console. He's not like super strong, but he is a killer in Dead by Daylight, so I guess you could get kills with him. Next is Clown. Throw purple bottle, survivor slow down, throw yellow bottle, wait 1 second, everyone speed up. That's literally it. It might take maybe a game or two to learn the trajectory of the bottles, and although he could struggle against good survivors in the 1v4, his 1v1 is really strong, although he may be kind of weak to get pressure against a coordinated team, but he is a really good and controller-friendly killer. Next is Dabuba. Although hugging walls can be maybe a little harder for some people on controller, people with low sensitivities can benefit from having the low sense to help them hug walls and not hit walls and get the free downs with the saw. Oh my god, you guys hear the bars? A few games learning the timing of how to use his charges either in a real match or in a custom games, and just watch a famous or one of your favorite DBD YouTubers that plays Bubba, aka DJ Lucid, and you will easily learn how to play Bubba effectively, although you might want to consider always bringing add-ons. That's another thing I want to bring up really quick actually, especially as a console player or controller player, either because it's more comfortable, affordable, or accessible for you, never feel discouraged for bringing add-ons. On controller, killers can feel slightly just impossible to play sometimes, and I don't mean because you're losing against good survivors. I mean you genuinely feel like your killer's power is extremely hard for you. Either if it's Nurse or even Wraith. If you feel like you need add-ons to even stand a chance, use the add-ons, It's a game at the end of the day. Add-ons are in the game for a fucking reason, so use them to your advantage. Disregard of what other people would think, as it's not important. Next is the demo puppy. Unfortunately, there will be people who might never experience the amount of pleasure you receive from playing this killer, because not only do survivors not sweat immediately, but some will actually go out of their way to not do gens just so they could get chased, which is the part of the game that we all love. Demo is not super strong, but he's not weak enough to I have a point where I just felt like I couldn't do anything because of the killer I was playing. I always felt like I had a chance to win every game that I played with Demo, other than like perkless games, because I like playing perkless sometimes. The shred is easy. The teleport takes no skill at all. It pretty much just takes game knowledge and tile knowledge to play this killer, which has an amazing design. Next is the Doctor. His power, once you take the 25 years to read it, is actually much simpler than it appears. The timing of a shock does take some timing and some skill, but he is very simple for anti-loop, and a static blast is literally just free information, so the Doctor is a safe pick for anybody on controller just due to the simplicity of his power. Eventually you're gonna have to learn about the tiers and stuff, and tearing survivors up, tearing survivors down, making them snap out of it, but that's not really the main important part of Doctor. Next I have Dredge. Some people may disagree, but I played this killer a total of 8 times, and I had one game where I didn't 4K. Dredge's design is very simple, teleporting is very easy, the Remnant for use and for like anti-loop and stuff is also really easy to use, and it's fun and counterable, so it's fair. You just gotta know how to read the survivors, like know if they're gonna hold forward, double back, double vault the pallet, panda vault the pallet, stuff like that. Dredge is a good pick. And the last killer I have an S that some people might feel heated about is Wesker. Personally, I think hitting his bounce and using his power and chase is almost brain dead easy. Possibly because I mained demo a while ago, and I just imagine Wesker's 2 dashes like a demo shred, but it can vault windows. So I think I just got used to his power really fast, but I think that's just me. I've had some people in comments tell me that he isn't easy, although I would beg to differ. His few techs are very easy, and he has a free passive slowdown with the virulent bounce, or virulent bounce, whatever you want to call it, with the infection. Even if someone disagrees with me, I still think with a little practice, Wesker is super rewarding for console and controller players. Now we're at the A tier killers and the longest tier. A tier is the killers that takes a good amount of time to like really learn how to play them good or decently against other decent survivors, but you know what I mean, it's pretty easy. There might be a few techs you have to expand upon, but hey, we're not talking about all the techs. First in this tier is Spirit. Her power is pretty easy, but you need at least a good pair of budget headphones or earbuds to play Spirit, and that's something not every single person can really invest into. Learning her takes a few games, and then as long as you do have a pair of decent headphones or something, you could go months without playing this killer and then play her once and do really great with her. She's only an A tier because she has an external factor to play her effectively, which is a headset. You do have to learn how to track a better and read how survivors loop, but that will come with time, as it will when you play any other killer. The next is the Huntress. Takes skill to play, takes skill to counter, balance, power, and most importantly, it's fun for both sides to play her. She just takes time. She has no crazy strats or anything like that, but she is so simple to understand. You throw a hatchet and they die. It's so simple. And for me personally, what took me a while to get used to playing her is knowing where the middle of my screen is, as I play FPS games and I always have crosshairs in the middle of them. So now that I don't have a crosshair, I kept like throwing it, and it turns out the hatchet wasn't going to the middle of my screen like it should have been because I wasn't paying attention. So it took me a little while to get used to, but I got the hang of it, so I somewhat now know what I'm doing when I play Huntress. But yeah, she can be really good for controllers when you really get used to her. Now we got Dioni. His demon dash is pretty easy to use, obviously, but it's the strike and the flicks that can be really hard when you first pick up this killer. I especially find just getting the insta downs without even using the dash the hardest part about Oni, because survivors just seem to 360 me all the time. But after a few games, it will be light work playing this killer. Definitely one of the most fun killers by far. Next is Ghostface. Once you get used to setting up survivors for 99s on the stalk meter and get used to how to play cover while you're stalking and just use your abilities good, you're gonna have mad fun playing this killer. Nowhere near the strongest, but Ghostface in good hands can really pick apart a good team. Even if you feel like you lost the match, one good stalk on one survivor, one quick down, one good stealth play can make the difference. Now there is Vami Mami the Plague. The slug potential and just keeping survivors injured is what makes Plague such a good killer. Unless the survivors are holding your red puke hostage by not cleansing, or they're looping you like Aaron, you will never ever feel like you never had a chance to win every single game as Plague. Aiming the puke is what you gotta learn, but I just take my right hand like off the trigger and like put my whole, like all 4 fingers on the right stick whenever I shoot, and I just like wiggle it around, and I end up getting a hit when I use my red puke. So like, I don't know, I think you just gotta find out what works for you. Next is Denoit. Honestly, now that I'm like halfway through the video, I think I could have put him higher because he is actually much easier to use than Plague and Ghostface in my opinion. You just press L1 to spawn in a guard at chase, and you're almost guaranteed a hit from the guard from either surrounding the survivor, or if the survivor holds forward, you might get a hit if the map isn't extremely pallet dense. Pretty easy to use, the guards to break pallets and generators, and defending gens with gen regression perks. It's actually very simple. Maybe strategizing the rotation of the guards takes good thought, but he is pretty simple, so I probably should have put him higher, but it is what it is. After that is the Artist. Her power is pretty simple. The only thing that takes some time is learning the timing of the birds and how to set them up for anti-loop hits and cross-map information. Sometimes on controller, it might take slightly longer to put some birds down if you have like lower sensitivities, but when you learn how survivors loop all tiles, it becomes way easier to anti-loop the survivors. As this isn't a guide, I'm not going to get into the details of using her power for all of the things I listed. It does take some brain usage, but this is a pretty damn good choice for console players if you ask me. Next up is Nemesis. Close range whips, like when you're not at a pallet or window, can be harder for him. At least that's the case for me, because when I play Nemesis, I play on 75 to 90 sensitivity for Nemesis, so I tend to over flick with the tentacle while up close, so I just use the whip at pallets and tight loops. You might not struggle with this like me, so try him. He is pretty strong, and I have a ton of fun playing him, and I think you will. Once you get used to aiming his whip and using it at loops, he is pretty rewarding. Now we have the Skull Merchant. A very boring killer in my opinion, as her gameplay just comes down to pressing L1 at a gen survivors have to deal with it, or press L1 at a loop to make the survivors leave the loop, which is pretty much what Knight does, just slightly worse. However, she is really easy to play, just tedious, as your whole plan is to make the game last as long as possible until you eventually kill all the survivors, which is really boring for me. Next is Mikael Myers. Super easy to understand, but against competent survivors, you can really struggle to win a lot of games unless you bring the OP add-ons. The early game is going to be really tough, but with good add-ons, you do have a good chance to win. He doesn't take any mechanical skills, so he is pretty good for console players. I only have him in this tier because he is really weak without all of the OP add-ons. After that, it is What Are You So Doing, Sadok, bro? She is easier to learn, especially from the biggest DVD YouTubers, but her weaknesses and M1 playstyle can fall hostile to even an average team of survivors. There have been so many times where I played this killer and I genuinely felt like quitting, as body blocking, flashlight shenanigans, and just straight up getting looped by fucking JRM was just getting to me, and I just felt like I couldn't do anything. But this killer doesn't take too much mechanical skill. There isn't an extremely high skill ceiling. There is a skill ceiling, obviously, like every killer, but it's not super high. I only have her down here because she is pretty weak compared to every other killer. Next up is Pig. Same scenario as Myers, as she's really easy to use. She's just very weak unless you play her a certain way and play really dirty, like putting traps on and then just harassing the survivor until you're guaranteed a head pop. Her stealth and crouch only useful at the beginning of the game, so it's pretty ass. So the game goes pretty much down to whether or not your traps make a difference, which sometimes they do, as you can get a kill, and sometimes they don't help at all. But since her dash is literally useless, there isn't any mechanical skill, as she's just an M1 killer, so playing her is still a good pick for console players. And finally, at the end of A tier is the Death Slinger. I would have had him higher, but I have had quite a few people either in Twitch or on some YouTube comments that they find him pretty hard for console. I find him really easy. However, I'm used to playing games like Overwatch where most characters can't aim down sights, so your regular sensitivity is technically also your aiming sensitivity. I think Behavior could implement an aiming sensitivity for Deathslinger or even for Huntress that would be more accessible for controller players and would help a lot of people out. He has a strong 1v1 power but can struggle against an altruism type of team in the 1v4, but he's overall strong and a safe pick for console in my own opinion. I don't know how many times I'm going to say in my own opinion. Can somebody like keep track of that and put it in the comments? Next tier is B tier. These killers are just not too easy or suitable for console players or controller players. At 1 I have Trapper, which some people will definitely not agree with. He is really easy to use, yes, but against even survivors that played 10 matches, you will most likely lose unless you're bringing the strongest add-on, strongest perks, and you're playing Basement Trapper, which is so boring, which is one of the most unengaging ways to play Dead by Daylight. That's pretty much all I wanted to say about Trapper, just he's weak unless you play him the most boring way. Next is Hell Priest. His passive slowdown with a box is free and easy. However, in my experience, his chain has a learning curve. People will definitely disagree, but he is one of the killers that you can genuinely feel like you can't do anything at times. Survivors that really know how to counter his anti-loop can easily destroy you, as you're almost left powerless in chase. And this has at least been the case for me, but maybe not for other people, so grab some salt and take it. But once you get used to his power, it does get much easier. Next is Pyramid Head. I would have had him basically reversed, like near the top of A, but I only have him down here because he just feels so clunky to play. Like, he doesn't feel smooth, he doesn't feel good to play on PC, let alone a PlayStation 4, Xbox One, or a Switch. His power is very easy to understand, so is the trails, but it's the clunkiness and the survivors that know when to double back and greed pallets and just loop him can be very tricky. However, he is very good at camping and tunneling, so maybe he should be up higher, but I also didn't like how big A tier was looking, so I had to put him in B. Next killer I have is the Hag. She just doesn't feel good to play on at all on console. For me, she feels like the worst killer to play. On PC, you do have less input lag and stuff like that. A few times I play Hag on PS5 too, and it just feels like whenever they trigger a trap, I'll be spamming L1 and the game just isn't responding to my button press press. So I have to like spam the teleport button, and sometimes it will teleport me, but I'm too busy spamming the button. So then by the time I get to swing, the survivor made distance and I miss. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Probably just a skill issue on my part, but I don't find her gameplay enjoyable either. So if your name is Kaido, I'm sorry and I love you, but this killer is not it. And at the very end of B, I have Nurse. Nurse is kind of like parallel parking. There's a huge learning curve, but when you get it down, you got it down for good. She is hard on controller, but practice makes perfect. I, in fact, have a video I'm working on where I play Nurse for 50 days in a row against bots only, no online games, and then we take my Nurse online and play against real survivors and see how good I do, but that is a video for another time. Alright, now we're at C tier, the final tier, and at C tier are the killers that are straight up unreal levels of hard on console or controllers and just aren't too accessible. First, I have Hillbilly. Personally, playing him is kind of easy for me. Mastering him is a different story. I'm not trying to master him, but playing him in general, I found pretty easy off rip, but other people would definitely disagree like crazy if I had him any higher. Also, I've made Blight for a while, so maybe since I'm good at Blight, I understand how it feels to play Hillbilly. I don't know, something like that, I guess. Next, I have the Blight. I never been bullied more when learning a killer than when I was learning Blight. Never, ever. But it was worth it, as now I win over 60% of my matches without any gen regression now. The amount of map knowledge, loop, and collision knowledge, using the power for flicks, techs, and hits, and just knowing how survivors play, good or bad, is just insane. For Blight and Hillbilly. Learning Blight is one of the hardest things I've ever done in a fucking video game. The only reason Blight isn't at the bottom is because he is the second strongest killer in the game, and 2 to 4 months of getting bullied is worth the power you will get from learning this killer, and you will just demolish survivors. And at very last, I have the Trickster. Trickster is at the bottom because not only is he just bad outside of the 1v1, but he has recoil. Like, why? I understand it for PC, I guess, and it is a little easier to control, even though there is slightly more recoil on PC than on the controller. But the recoil on console is what makes him almost unplayable for me. I have multiple outfits I've earned or bought for Trickster that might never ever see a match because I refuse to play this fucking killer. I refuse to put myself through the unbearable pain of playing this killer on controller, which sucks because he is so fucking cool. He is one of the coolest killers in Dead by Daylight. He fits decently in the game. He has had some of the sickest outfits too, but I only find myself playing him randomly just to diversify the killers I play when I don't want to play Blight because survivors keep giving up or something. But if he was better in the 1v4 somehow and didn't have recoil, at least on console, we would see less Spirit players, which I am all for. I really love Trickster, but his power just does not feel good. I'm definitely gonna have gameplay in the background, but it is gonna be against bots, so they do dodge the knives super good and super easily, so just ignore the fact that I'm missing all of them. And to those people who might be asking, where's Twins? The answer is yes. That is my tier list of the best to worst people to play on controller or console if you're new to Dead by Daylight. Again, this is my opinion, so take it with a little bit of salt. And if you're new here, why don't you hit that fucking subscribe button, my nigga? We almost at 1,000 subscribers. Well, we're not even at 900 yet, so I need to stop getting my hopes up. But we're almost at 1,000 anyways. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Make sure to leave a like and share with somebody. If you have any video ideas, make sure to leave them in the comments below. I will definitely look at all of them. I respond to almost every single comment, so why doesn't everybody who sees this video leave a comment? And according to my analytics, this is the part of the video that nobody watches. So if you are still here and you left a comment, edit that comment and put an Apple emoji in your comment just to see if the real ones stuck around this far. If I don't see any Apple comments, I'm letting everybody know. Oh, and follow the Discord. It is on screen right now. There's also a link in the comment and in the description if you want to join that. And make sure you tune in to the next video where I 1v1 odds Darva on the most killer-sided map and I loot him for 10 gens. Baby,